So you're thinking about trying Final Fantasy XIV, are you? Well, I'm here to tell you whether that's a good idea or not. I've been playing this game since the game's relaunch of A Realm Reborn, doing the vast majority of all content in the game released up until this point. So that's a bit of my background with this title, and you know I'm credible and have a good solid opinion on my hands, so let's get into what I think. So the first thing to really note and be aware of is that this game is a tab targeting MMORPG in the same style of World of Warcraft. The game has a lot of similarities to that game, just the overall theme park feel of the game, the open world, and the aspect of like duty finder type things and party finder aspects as well. There's a lot of similarities between both the titles, but 14 I think you will find has more of an emphasis on story. First and foremost, the story is something that is super prevalent in Final Fantasy 14. You are going to have to play through the whole story up until the current point in order to reach the endgame content and catch up to other players, which is something that I immediately wanted to get across. The story is something that people get really hung up on. It's simultaneously the best thing in this game and also I think the worst, because players get introduced to this and the story from the beginning isn't super great or compelling. It gets better as time goes on with the 2.0 storyline, but then once you get into the expansions like Heaven's Word, Stormblood, and especially Shadowbringers, the story just, oh man, it's one of the best in any Final Fantasy title to date, in my opinion. So really what hinders it though is the slow start at the beginning of the story, but I recommend if you aren't pressed for time or don't want to play this game right away, they are going to be reworking the first part of A Realm Reborn. The thing that holds people up is after the first initial story, which is good, the 2.0 launch story of A Realm Reborn is pretty good. But when you move on to the post-game patches that were in between the base game and Heaven's Word, though, that's where it starts to slow up. So that's also where people kind of burn out. So they're going to be reworking that for patch 5.3, which should be coming, I believe, this summer sometime. The 5.2 is coming out in February, and they're usually about 3 months apart. So I think if you can wait till May or June, maybe that's going to be a better option so you don't get burnt out and you wait for that story rework. However, if you do want to get invested in the story and start playing now, by all means go for it. It's not a bad story by any means. I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that that's a point of burnout for a lot of players. And if the story is something that you absolutely just cannot put up with, that you just want to get straight to endgame, there is optional items too that you can purchase through the store, the optional items store, that will allow you to skip the entire story up until this point. And they also have various items that allow you to boost your job levels up too. So if you want to get straight to the end game, straight into the content with your friends at the end game, you have the option to do that as well. But as you go on and as time goes on and as you progress, you're going to have a more advanced kit to play with, and it's going to be a lot more in-depth and a lot more skill to be able to pull off what you want to do with it. And something I do recommend if you're still feeling uneasy about the combat is possibly looking up an endgame POV video or point of view video of one of the endgame bosses and taking a look at the player and how they play and just how many skills that they have to weave and pay attention to. There's a lot of intricacies to a lot of the jobs in this game, and I think that is one of the benefits of it. There's jobs that are super simple or ones that are really complex too. So just kind of play around, maybe look up a guide to see what job works best for you. You won't be disappointed with the combat if you stick with it, I promise. So something really unique, and I'm sure that you've heard this by now if you have looked into Final Fantasy XIV at all, but is the fact that you can level up every single job in class on one character. There's no need to make any alts in this game. The only reason that you should make an alt is for bank space, or if you want to make another character and level them up and get them through the story. You can have two characters that are able to raid and are able to get raid items instead of competing like with a weekly lockout. So those are the only options that you would want to have an alt. However, if those don't interest you at all, you can just play whatever you want on one character. You don't have to swap or do anything else. Everything can be leveled up on one. You can do all the quests on one. All the progress is saved to one character only. Now, what types of content do you have waiting for you at endgame once you get a feel for the combat and level up? Well, you have a few different options depending on whether you're more interested in PvE or PvP. So PvE, you have dungeons that you can do at endgame, as well as through the story leveling. You're going to be doing not a lot of dungeons, but a pretty good amount of dungeons, and you have the option to grind those and level as well. It's pretty good experience. There's also trials, which are boss fights against enemies. They range from a normal story level difficulty, which is pretty easy, all the way up to an extreme level of difficulty, which is on the more harder scale, but it's still not super difficult. It's on the more easier side of content in this game. And then you also have raids, which are the current raid tier is the Eden series, which feature bosses from all across Final Fantasy and also original bosses that they create for 4 bosses that they release every few months. There'll be 4 new bosses for raid tier, and there's 3 times per expansions that they do this. There's gonna be a one that comes out like about a month after the expansion comes out usually, which will give you 4 bosses, and then about 6 months down the line they'll give you 4 more, and so on and so forth. But between that, there's also raids that are 24-man content that you can do with 23 other players, including yourself, run through. And the most recent one is Nier, based off of Nier Automata, which is very cool. One of the best 24-man raids I think that they've done. Definitely highly recommend checking that out if you're interested in Nier at all. And yeah, that's pretty much the endgame cycle there. You have your dungeons, trials, your raids, and then you also have your ultimates, which is a form of content that the majority of the player base is not going to touch. But these are fights that require intense focus and precision and learning to be able to get these down. People spend hours and hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours trying to get these fights down. It's something that you can aim for in the game if you want. You get a super beautiful weapon and title for clearing any of the 3 ultimate fights we have in the game right now. And we just got one last patch, so if you want to try your hand at that, go for it. But they are some of the hardest content in the game, so you have that to tackle if you so choose. And now let's get into PvP. Now PvP is definitely a point of contention with the players of Final Fantasy XIV. Some people love it and some people hate it, and they also are a little bit skeptical about the developer team, some of the changes that they've made. But your options are, you have basically 4v4 team-based arena style combat, which you go in with a healer, a tank, and then 2 damage dealers against another team of 4 random players, and you fight them in a small arena, and whoever takes out the most amount of people and collects coins wins. Basically just an arena style combat mode. And then they also have big open world PvP modes that you get funneled into. If you queue up for it, you get funneled into a PvP map, which consists of controlling different nodes like Capture the Hill, and also there's like destroying different nodes that pop up. It's pretty interesting game mode. I definitely, if you want to look up a video of that, go for it. It's interesting because they like to do a lot of cross promotions in the game to encourage people to do PvP, because a lot of people aren't super fond of it. So there's times where it's going to be a little bit muddy for you if you do enjoy doing PvP. But like I said, there is options out there for you if that is something you want to do. And beyond the various combat aspects of PvE, there's also a lot of side things that you can do. There's the Gold Saucer, which features various mini games for you to complete. There's the weekly fashion log that you can do to get more resource coins to buy different mounts and weapons and glamour type stuff. There's lots of events there that you can do each week. There's the triple triad stuff. There is just a lot of different side content in this game to keep you satisfied. There's also a very dedicated and developed crafting system. If you want to take a look at how intricate that really is, I definitely recommend looking up a video for that, because some of the crafting guides, I believe they simplified it now, but as of like a few months ago, it was pretty intricate. So it's really, there's a lot of side content for you to do in this game if combat isn't always your cup of tea. There's a lot of stuff for you to do solo, with your guildmates, with your friends, whatever you really feel like doing at that point in time. So that pretty much sums up my thoughts on overall Final Fantasy XIV as a whole. So should you play it? Yes, I absolutely think you should give this game a shot. If the story interests you in any sort of way, definitely look into this game. The story is one of the prominent features of this game. It's one of the reasons why people play and then they sub for the story and then they quit after the story is over and come back just for the story. It's that good. People literally pay only to play the story. And also the combat in this game, super fluid. If you can give it time to let it develop and get your abilities that you can weave in between your other actions, that's going to greatly increase the combat enjoyment for you, I believe. At least it did for me. So I say give that a fair shake and see if it's for you. If not, so be it. But I do think that this game has some of the best combat in any MMORPG to date for tab targeting. The game also does have a free trial that you can play for free. No time gate or anything. You can play it indefinitely until level 35, I believe it is. You can play until. You can play all the jobs up until level 35. You don't have to pay for anything. You can check that out and you can go to their website and get that free trial. Try that today. See if you like the game or not. Just be aware that the combat at level 35 is not going to be super enjoyable for you. So don't let that make up your impression of the game as a whole. So if this helped you guys, just let me know, leave a like. Are you guys interested in trying the game out? Let me know in the comments, or if you play the game, what's your favorite aspect of it? I love the game. It's definitely my favorite MMORPG on the market at this moment. So thank you guys for checking me out, and I hope you'll subscribe for more content, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you.